Hey there, greetings everybody. I want to welcome you here to Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So it's Friday night, and for the last, I guess this will be the fourth Friday in a row, we have done ranking the albums. This was a concept that Ben came up with. So what he wanted to do, instead of having a battle of the bands, he decided he wanted to do this, and I think it's a great idea, so I've pretty much got on board with it. And what he does is he chooses 4 albums, and up to date so far he's chosen the 4 albums he's chosen for each episode have been radically different, which is good. It doesn't get boring for me. And sometimes if you have 2 bands that are kind of similar, sometimes you get confused about which band did what, so it's always good if you have it. At least in my opinion, I think it's better if you have some radically different stuff to see how it competes against each other. So he's given me 4 albums this week again, so this is episode number 4. 4 albums. The 4 albums he gave me were the Fixx's Reach the Beach album, which I believe was early 80s. Motorhead's Ace of Spades, that was definitely early 80s, I remember that one. The Who, The Kids Are All Right, which I think was probably, to be honest, I don't know much about. This is the one Who album that I never owned, and I don't really know a lot about. I think it's early 70s though. And then the last album that he gave me was National Health, which I wrote the date down for this because I didn't know anything about this group. This is their debut album from 1978. So I listened to all 4 albums, which is what I'm inclined to do. I tend to do them while I'm doing my baseball. I'll have the album going so I can listen to it at the same time. So I like to kill one requires my looking and the other requires my ears. So works good. So anyway, so I listened to all 4. I didn't find one album won fairly easily. The other 3 could have went anyway. To be honest with you, there wasn't a lot of difference between them. I think there was a clear enough difference between each of the 3 that I had them in the order that I wanted them, but they weren't 100% dominant. None of the bottom 3 were not dominant albums, but they all passed fairly easily. Like for me, you got to get at least, it's like when you were in school, you got a 50%, you passed, right? So all of them did that, and a couple of them were in the 60s, maybe a little bit higher. And then the one album won it fairly easily, but not dominatingly. So we'll start by talking about the album that came fourth. For me, it was the Fixx's Reach the Beach. I kind of think of these guys, when I think of New Wave, this is one of those bands that fits into there. They kind of have some similarities between them and XTC, but I just think XTC just does it better and has more variety to their sound. I think they were probably better instrumentally too, and there were, just overall a much better band. I think the Fixx, not a bad band by any stretch. They had the couple of singles on this, which were, I wrote them here. Oh yeah, Ground Zero. Is it? No, I can't remember. I need my glasses. Saved by Zero, that was the one I was thinking of. That one did reasonably well. I never minded that song. I liked the other one a little better. One thing leads to another. I think it was more up-tempo, a little bit better. And most of their album kind of falls in that range of those 2 songs. But not terribly memorable. It's an album that, if I saw it now, if somebody had it at a garage sale for $1 or something, I would probably get it, but I have no intention of going to look for it or paying anything above that for it. So it comes in at number 4, but still passable. Definitely gets a pass here. The next album up, much different, very different album from the Fixx, and that's Motorhead's Ace of Spades. In the day, this would have probably been a landslide winner, but not so much now. I think part of my interest in Motorhead early on was that I actually saw them live, and wow, they are the loudest band in history. I'm pretty sure of it. This album was out by then, I'm pretty sure, because I remember the song Ace of Spades, which was a big hit for them. The The Chase is better than the catch. Another song actually probably my favorite song by them. These are probably my two favorite songs by them. So this is a pretty heavy, pounding album. Absolutely crushing heaviness to it. But it actually has, having listened to the entire album during this as well, and I had heard this about it before, but I was listening for it this time, is that there's a bit of a punk movement to this album too. It's not, the music is too heavy for even punk, but it definitely has that punk smashing and banging, and the lyrics are like definitely very graphic and, you know, maybe even pedophilia at some points during the song. You've got Jailbaits on here too, so I mean, yeah, if you like that really heavy crashing, banging, and Lemmy's voice fits it perfectly. He just has that really raspy, definitely a distinctive voice. When you hear heavy metal and you're not sure if it's Motorhead or not, you'll know as soon as he starts singing that's Motorhead, because nobody sounds like that. Anyways, I think it's a strong album for them. Definitely, the songs are memorable, and the lyrics are definitely unforgettable. And Lemmy's voice is spectacularly raspy and hard and aggressive. But I'm just not a Motorhead fan anymore, and that's just all there is to it. Is nothing against them. I just don't listen to it. It's not something I would. It's the same kind of deal here. I'd probably, if I saw it for $1 or $2, I'd probably buy it, but I wouldn't go out of my way to get it. And that probably makes me almost blasphemy from the metal community, but I'm not going to apologize for it. That's just how I see it and how I hear it now. It may have something to do with my hearing. I just found that this concert in particular was one of those concerts that really just grated on me. Anyways, they come in at number 3. So the top 2 bands, obviously, number 2 for me was National Health. This is my first time ever listening to them, so this was the one album of the 4 that I had never heard before. And I knew that it was jazz and jazz fusion, so unless it's like kind of like that jazzy sound like Steely Dan has, it generally doesn't sit well with me. I appreciate the talent. Like, there's a ton of talent on this album. I made more notes about this particular album than I did about the other 3 combined. It's operatic, especially in the vocal part of it, very operatic. The solos, of course, are all really good. Some of them, like some of the guitar stuff and the keyboard stuff, is pretty much off the charts as far as so good. I really enjoyed the flute. That was the part of this album that I enjoyed the most, was the flute playing was really good and fit the mode of the music very well. But at times, like most jazz, it tends to meander, or, you know, some people prefer to say they like to improvise a lot. There's quite a bit of improvisation here. For some people it's improvisation, for other people it's meandering. I tend to be somewhere in between the two. I think the instrumentation on this album is spectacular. I especially think the keyboardist is off the charts. I think he's the best part of this album. But overall, because it's basically a kind of a jazz fusion-y type of album, I didn't care for it as much as I probably would have, maybe if it had been a little bit more like what I like in prog music. But at any rate, it still was good enough to win the number 2 spot. The number 1 album won it fairly easily, but it's not one of my favorite albums by the band. Of course, we're talking about The Kids Are Alright by The Who. It's not an album I ever really listened to much, and I think there's 2 reasons for that. The first one is that it's a musical soundtrack for a musical, or for a movie, if you prefer. And it's typical of that kind of soundtrack sound. It's kind of almost storyish telling, and so there's no I mean, in the case of the Who, there's a distinction between the songs, but it kind of meanders along a little bit that way. The recording of it is kind of noisy and not really clear, and it's kind of raw. The album is raw, and I do like my Who raw, but I like watching them raw. I don't like really listening to that stuff. Maybe the best part of this album was the song Young Man Blues. They are so good on that. Just absolutely killer on that. Maybe the best song of any of the stuff that I heard on the 4 albums. Just really killing it, really nailing it. The guitar, the distortion from the guitar. Keith Moon's going mental. There's a lot of really good bass stuff going on here from John Entwistle. I think he does My Wife on this too, which he does a really excellent job on it. So there's lots of really good parts to this album. I just think it sounds kind of disjointed at points, and a little bit meandering at times, really kind of raw and polluted in some ways. Although I love the Who, they're one of my favorite bands, but I've never been a big lover of their albums in the way that I love some of my other groups' albums. I love them live. I love watching their videos. I love listening to them live. I really love Live at Leeds. I even like their Live at Lyon, the more recent one. So I really like a lot of their live stuff more. And this album should kind of fall into that, but I think it's because it's more of a kind of a soundtrack for a movie, which really doesn't sit well with me for some reason. I'm not really sure what it is, considering that among my favorite, I really like the Pink Floyd versions when they do their studio album, when they did their what do they call, soundtrack movies. I had no problem with them. I guess it's just a matter of who's doing what when they're doing it, right? I just never really kind of warmed up to this album too much, but I think it's still the best of the 4 albums here. So the Who's gonna win it. The Kids Are All Right, and they're gonna be going on to the next round. And it's kind of my first real experience listening to this album that from beginning to end. I never really did that before with them. I don't know why. I just always passed on this album when I would go shopping for stuff. And if I saw Who stuff I wanted, I would buy it, but sometimes I would pass, and this was one of the albums I passed on. So there you have it. Those are the 4 albums, and my rankings according to how I like them. The Who, The Kids Are All Right was number 1. Number 2 was National Health's Debut from 1978. Number 3, Motorhead's Ace of Spades, and I believe that was the early 80s as well. And the Fixx Reach the Beach, a new wave album from the early 80s as well, came in at number 4. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of ranking the albums. This of course means that the Who will go on to the next round, and I hope you like it. If you did like it, please like and subscribe. It's much appreciated. And any comments about any of the albums, or if you want to rank them according to how you see them, because I only can hear with my own ears. I can't really hear with other people's ears. I tried that once. It doesn't really work very well. And please hit the notification bell if you want to be notified of more content. And we will see you then. Take care. Goodbye.